Hi there, Conoy family. Pastor Nick here. Special announcement here at the end of the service. We're going to kind of begin to unveil the plans that our leadership team have been putting together in terms of what it's going to look like when we start to come back to church. And so there's a video that's going to follow my announcement here about some of the steps we'll take when we actually get back to church. But the first thing I want to tell you is, the time frame is unknown to us. There's no way for us to know the exact time frame of when we will be coming back to church. But here is our best guess. We think that in the beginning of June, Lancaster County will move to the yellow phase. In the yellow phase, we should be able to have groups of 25 people meet together. After the yellow phase, when we get to the green phase, or maybe it's even further along in the yellow, I believe that we'll finally see groups of 100 being allowed. When we're released to be in groups of 100, we will officially reopen our Sunday morning service in person together. And so we think, by our best guess, that will be in the beginning of July. And so right now what we're planning on is the beginning of July, reopening the church for in-person church services. Now here's the thing. I know not everybody agrees on this. We don't all see eye to eye on whether or not we stay closed or we open up early or whatever it is. Here's what we think is going to best honor our witness in our community and our witness to our brothers and sisters and our witnesses to people who are not currently Christians but maybe will one day be Christians. We're going to work with the parameters set down by the authorities that govern us, okay? Right now, we are not meeting in person, but that doesn't mean that we can't love Jesus. That doesn't mean that we can't get closer to him. That doesn't mean that we can't learn. That doesn't mean that we can't love our neighbor. That doesn't mean that we can't be really intentional about our social media presence and the way that we care for one another that way. It doesn't mean that we can't serve, like we're doing our food boxes right now for the Whistletop Apartments. There's all sorts of things that we can still do. We can still be the church and we can still follow Jesus even though we're not meeting together. Now, here's what I know we all miss. We miss each other. And so when we move to the yellow phase and we are released to have groups of 25 people together, we are going to be very intentional about weekly small group activities at the church. And so what that might look like would be perhaps a campfire, perhaps a movie night outdoors, perhaps a work day at the church where we do some weeding and mulching. There's a variety of things that we can do to fellowship together and still honor the 25-person limit that we're going to move to. And so by our best guess, in June, when we move to yellow, you can expect to see a whole lot of small group activity out at the church building. In July, when we're released to be together in 100 people, we're going to reopen our church services and we'll start to come back. Now, the video that follows this, that Scott Boyer and I put together, outlines some of the things, the steps that we're going to take on our Sunday morning services once we're back together. Again, if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via calling the church office, numbers on the screen, or emailing me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. I know this has been hard, I know this has been trying, but I think that the end is in sight, and I am so excited to see all of you again. Blessings. Hey there, Conoy Church. This is Nick Ressler and Scott Boyer, and we are going to take a couple minutes today just to give you some information on what church might look like when we can finally open up. As I've said to you before, our leadership team has been meeting and coming up with some plans as to what are some steps we need to take to try and make coming back to church and reopening church as safe as possible for our community. And so we've taken some steps that we're going to share with you guys today. At first, when we come back to church doors will only open at 10:15. Our worship services start at 10:30, but because of one of the stipulations to returning has been to limit the amount of time that you have people in a confined space, we are going to be limiting the amount of time the church is open initially when we return. So the doors will open at 10:15,
giving 15 minutes before the service actually begins. When the service begins, you'll be able to come in and there'll be a table where you will find face masks. The face masks cannot be reused. And so what we're gonna ask is that if you have your own face mask, please bring it and wear it when we first come back to church. And if you don't have a face mask, take one of ours, but please take it with you when you leave. Don't return it to the table when you're done. And the reason that we're asking for people to wear face masks is because we want to make sure that we're caring for people who are worried about contracting COVID-19. And so it's not so much about you, it's about you caring for the people around you. And so when we first come back to church, we are going to require that people wear masks during the duration of the service. One of the changes that we'll be making, at least initially, is there will not be children's ministry when we first come back. And the reason for that is that we can't keep children socially distanced at first. And so as social distancing is still a requirement, we're gonna hold off on having children's ministry. And I realize that does make it a little bit more difficult for some families, including my own. And so there won't be any children's ministry or nursery when we first return to church, but that'll be one of the first things that we begin again as soon as we're able to. When we first come back to church, Sunday school classes will not resume right away. We will wait until the fall to resume Sunday school classes. We often take a break in the summertime anyway, and so by the time we come back, summer will be in full swing, and we're gonna take a break from Sunday school, and then September starts when we return to school, then we will start our Sunday school classes again. As you can see, at least for the temporary time, we will not be having a coffee or a snack time during the morning worship time. And the reason for that is, again, reoccurring contact in the same place. There'll come a time when we will open up the coffee again. It won't be self-serve. You'll come up and somebody with gloves on will give you your regular, your decaf coffee, but we are not gonna be having a self-serve coffee or snack area when we immediately return to church. Upon entering the sanctuary, one of the first things you'll notice is that there are clusters of chairs put together. And what we've done is try to do our very best to ensure that there are 6 feet between all the clusters of chairs. Most clusters have 4 chairs in them, though some have 5, some have 2, and some have 3, as we attempt to anticipate how your family or how your group of friends might sit. In the very back of the sanctuary is a table. And on this table, when we return to church, will be a box where you can place your offering. And we are not going to be passing a plate because that's one contact surface that we don't need to be spreading amongst everyone. So there will be no offering in the usual way. Instead, what we'll be doing is asking you to put your tithe in the box at the back of the sanctuary, either when you come in, or when you leave from church. Find a seat. And what we're going to ask too is that as you look to find a seat, that you fill the seats in the front first, because we have seats extending all the way to the back doors. And in order for us to maintain safety protocols of 6 feet, if someone is sitting at the back doors and everybody's walking in past them, they're not maintaining 6 feet. So when you enter the sanctuary, please find the cluster of chairs as far forward as you can and sit there. Now, right now, you can see that there are cameras set up in the sanctuary. And those cameras won't be in the same places they are right now. Those are for our current live streaming process. But we do want to continue live streaming. Even after we come back to church, we've recognized that there's a number of people who attend our services online, and there's going to be some people who aren't comfortable coming back right away. So we're going to continue live streaming the services even after we return to church as normal. Please feel free to make use of the various hand sanitizer stations that will be set up around the church, the sanctuary, the lobby, and so that you can continue to keep yourself safe and those around you safe. Our greeters at the front door will not be shaking hands. In fact, what we'll be doing is opening the door for you. So the greeter's role will change just a little bit when we come back, in that their job, rather than shaking hands, is going to be to say hello and open the door for you. That way there's one less surface that you're touching. We also won't be using the downstairs during this time. There's not really any reason for us to be down there right now, especially with having our church open at 10:15 just before the service starts. We're not going to be using the downstairs unless you have to use the restroom. There is a restroom upstairs, but if for some reason that's full, feel free to go downstairs and use that one. We're also contracting with somebody to come in and sanitize the church between services, and we're going to do the best that we can as leadership to make sure that we're sanitizing all the services, even during the Sunday morning time that we're all together, to make sure that we're not having the same contact on various services.